Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast with me, Harry Symeou, sponsored by Loserpool.com, a fantastic new betting game. Head over to Loserpool.com for more information. Now, this show is a review show, of course. It's episode 48, is that right? I need to check that. I think it's 48. But it's also a bit of a preview show combined due to the fact that Cardiff City come to the Emirates as early as Tuesday this week. So we'll be looking ahead to that one, as well as reflecting on the Manchester United game. As disappointing as it was, we have to cover it. Apologies, I haven't been producing as much content this week. Skipped a couple of shows due to the birth of my son last Saturday. At least he let me watch the Chelsea game first before coming along, even if it was on my phone in the labour ward. But it doesn't matter. He's here now, safe and sound, and it's time to get back to work as far as the Chronicles of a Gooner goes. In case you hadn't already noticed by the sound quality, I am recording this episode via my iPhone. It's just more convenient right now. It's easier, takes less time, and it means I only have to sneak away for half an hour or so, as opposed to an hour and a half. So yeah, just given the way things are this week at home, up and down, I need to take the easier option. So apologies. I will get back to normal in the next few days, but that does mean that there is no YouTube video this week. It will be uploaded there, of course. The episodes always are, but it will be in audio format only. So please bear with me, and I'm sure I'll get that all back on track ASAP. Right, let's talk Arsenal. So let's start off with Friday night's disappointing FA Cup exit at the hands of Manchester United. As some of you will know who have been following me on Twitter, I was in the hospital all week last week. And to be honest, that meant that there was no real build-up to this one for me. My focus and attention was elsewhere. And to be honest, I didn't even know if I was going to get to the game. But fortunately, we had some great news on Thursday evening, Friday morning, I think it was. And I thought, you know what, I need a break. It's time to get out of here for a little bit. Let's go down to the Emirates and hopefully witness a good Arsenal performance. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be. Actually, maybe that statement's a little bit harsh. The performance wasn't too bad, I guess, for the most part. But, you know, you can't afford to switch off defensively the way we did. It's the same problems, isn't it, over and over again. Our inability to defend with any sort of resoluteness, is that even a word? We just can't seem to keep teams out at the moment. United are obviously on a fantastic run of form, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's gone there. And, you know, this might be a little bit controversial, but I don't even think that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is that good a manager. I think that Manchester United just got themselves into a mess, and at that point, any change would have been a positive change. I genuinely believe that. You know, Solskjaer's enthusiastic, and he's got the fans on his side already, and, you know, he seems like a nice enough chap, but is he a top football manager? In my opinion, no, not at the moment. It's not to say that he won't go on and become one, but right now, I think all he's done is gone in there, put his arm around certain players, Paul Pogba probably being the main one, you know, giving them a little bit of encouragement, told them how imperative they are to the team and how much he wants to build around them, and basically just taken the shackles off, and that's provided brilliant results so far. But in that run, they hadn't played too many difficult teams, and I thought that, you know, coming to the Emirates would be a real test for them. But yeah, let's look at the team that Unai Emery selected. So Petr Cech returned to the Arsenal goal, and then it was a back four of Ainsley, Maitland-Niles, Sokratis, Babastathopoulos, Koscielny and Sead Kolasinac. Midfield pivot of Lucas Torreira, Granit Xhaka, with Aaron Ramsey ahead of them, Iwobi operating from one side, Aubameyang from the other, and Alexander Lacazette through the middle. The substitutes bench was as follows: El Neni, Ozil, Lichtsteiner, Monreal, Leno, Mustafi and Guendouzi. Looking at Manchester United's team, you know, you look at that back four and you feel as though you can get at it. It was Young, Bailly, Lindelof and Shaw. You know, you do feel that you can get at teams like that. You know, Bailly and Lindelof, both probably fantastic prospects, I think, and both were signed for quite hefty amounts. And I think people expected them to hit the ground running a little bit quicker than they actually have. But for me, looking at that and looking at our front players, I really felt that we could hurt this team. The part of the Manchester United team that concerned me was further forward. Alexis Sanchez looks to have refound himself under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Jesse Lingard, as much as I absolutely can't stand the prick, he's an effective player. Romelu Lukaku is a beast in that centre-forward position. A little bit surprised that he got the nod over Rashford, but rotation for the Cups and all that. And, of course, Paul Pogba. And what I think Manchester United done really well was, the likes of Herrera and Matic in that midfield were very conservative in the sense that they weren't trying to bust the lung to get forward and get up in support of their front players. They had a job to do in front of that back four, and they'd done it very, very well. As a result, Pogba, Lingard, Lukaku and Sanchez were allowed to go on and play. Now, I want to start off with the injury to Socrates, because I think that was probably the first sign of the wheels coming off in that game. I thought up until that point we'd had quite a bit of possession, hadn't really made it count though, but neither had Manchester United. It seemed a bit like a stalemate, and I remember saying to a mate in the stadium that I wouldn't have been surprised if this finished at 0-0 at that point. It was a bit of a standoff between the two sides. Nobody really wanted to get caught out. Arsenal started with quite a bit of energy like they did against Chelsea. We're trying to press high up the pitch, but Manchester United had the quality to play their way out of that. And that's the danger with playing that way. I know I've criticised Emery recently for chopping and changing, and his approach is being, really confusing for the players. One week we're playing with a sort of back five, back three, whatever you want to call it, with lots of possession across the back line, but no real urgency further forward. And then against Chelsea, we went back to the press that we saw right at the beginning of the season, and it worked. Against Manchester United, I know what he was trying to do, and I think it was the right decision. So I'm not going to criticise him this week for selection or approach. I think he probably done what I would have done. Those of you who listen to the show regularly will know that Mesut Ozil will be my side. But other than that, there's not too much to complain about. So I'm not going to sit here and dig out the manager. I feel I've been fair in my criticism of him in the past. When he gets things right, I will give him credit, but equally when he gets things wrong, I will call those out. So not too much issue with the approach, but then of course we were rocked, weren't we, by the injury to Socrates. He took not entirely sure what happened there. He sort of went into a challenge, he came off it looking hurt. He received quite lengthy treatment. He got up, he looked like he could barely walk. He made his way over to the touchline, was ready to come back on, and you're looking at him and you're thinking, is this guy able to continue? He could barely walk. He was obviously looking up to the heavens in disappointment, and you could tell it really affected him mentally, I think, and he didn't want to give up, did he? He wanted to get himself back on the pitch ASAP, and as soon as he ran back on, he signalled for a substitute because he felt the problem. He knew that his game was over, and it looks as though he'll probably be out now until the end of February. And for me, that's a massive blow because, I've been critical of him in the past, and I've said that it felt like we were shopping for sort of second-rate players, but he's probably been our most consistent centre-back. Actually, not even probably. He has been our most consistent centre-back this season, and so to lose him is a major blow. I guess the bright side of it is that Koscielny's back now and looks fitter, at least, and so him and Mustafi can deputise for the time being, but big blow for us, and I think that unsettled us quite a bit. And then, of course, United's opening goal came. Poor defending once again. Alexis Sanchez managing to drift from Manchester United's left-hand side across the penalty area, find himself inside the box. He rounded the keeper and stuck it in the back of the net. And it was kind of classic Alexis Sanchez, wasn't it? And up until that point, I actually felt that Ainsley Maitland-Niles had dealt with him quite well. And I know Maitland-Niles isn't a right-back, and this is what happens when you play players out of position, isn't it? You get caught in certain situations and the reactions perhaps aren't quick enough. Perhaps you don't step up with the back four when you should. I'm not saying that was the case in this goal, but you know, the habits of a defender just aren't there. And as well as he's played and tried, you know, you're going to get found out. And I think Alexis Sanchez took advantage of that. He was clever. He peeled off Maitland-Niles. Nobody tracked the run, and he ended up putting the ball in the back of the net. And, you know, Alexis Sanchez got a lot of stick from our supporters, and I guess rightly so. But for me, he ran to the corner sort of thing, and he put his arms up as if to say, I'm not going to celebrate. And I thought, you know what, fair play to the guy. And, you know, he was getting all sorts of abuse, and I was just thinking in my head, like, fair play. You know, he's scored. He's not made a massive fuss of it. And then one of those absolute twats, I can't remember if it was Lingard or Pogba, came over and they started doing this stupid celebration. I thought, you know what? Fuck you, Alexis. You deserve it. You know, having not celebrated initially, I thought it was really disappointing that he took part in that stupid little, I don't know what it is, aim into the skies, pretending to polish his boots. I don't know what that bullshit celebration was, to be honest. But yeah, that disappointed me. Because I kind of get why Alexis Sanchez left the club. You know, nobody wants to see their best players join a rival, but you kind of get it, don't you? Because we've all spoken about the lack of ambition, the lack of investment, the poor management over the past 2-3 seasons, and you wonder how long you can keep top quality players at a club before they get fed up. And that's just what happened with Sanchez. He's not the first, and he won't be the last. It happened with Van Persie, it happened with Nasri, it happened with Fabregas. And, you know, so am I going to hold it against him forever? Don't particularly like him for it, but I'm not going to stand there and call him every name under the sun, because, to be honest, I don't really care. And just 2 minutes later, Manchester United doubled their lead through Jesse Lingard. It was a good move from Manchester United. They completely cut us open, and there we saw the problem with the way Unai Emery wants to play. If ever there was a goal to demonstrate the shortfall and the shortcomings of that particular system, this was it. Both our fullbacks had pushed on forward. The defensive midfielders hadn't covered the spaces. And, you know, we tried to press United up the pitch. It didn't really work. They won the ball back, and they broke on us, and ultimately ended up with 3 attackers running at 2 centre-halves. And the problem is, for the centre-halves, I feel sorry for them, because they're then pulled, aren't they? Because when they want to stay narrow and as close to each other as possible, they can't do so because there's nobody in the right or left-back positions, meaning they have to drift out to the flanks, creating a gaping hole in the middle. And if people don't get back in time, then you've got a massive problem. And I think it was Koscielny that got pulled out to that side, and then the cut back to Lingard was an easy one, and the finish was a simple one too. He just side-footed it into the bottom corner, ran into the corner, done that absolutely pathetic moonwalk. And just for the record, Lingard, your moonwalk is fucking shit. So yeah, Manchester United found themselves 2 up, and at that point you're kind of thinking game over. And it was really disappointing, because we'd had lots of possession. Hadn't really created a great deal, though, if truth be told, up until that point. So, you know, it wasn't just defensively that we weren't up to scratch. We hadn't really created an awful lot. And you could argue that United didn't really do much either, but at the end of the day, they took their chances, and they found situations where we were exposed, and they punished us for them. And, you know, like I said already, that goal, for me, demonstrated the problem with playing the way that we did, and the way that we do, and the way that Unai Emery feels is best. But then, of course, on the stroke of half-time, I think it was 2 minutes before the break, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, with the simplest of tap-ins, put us back in the game. And then you're thinking, you know, it's 2-1. Arsenal back in it, back in business, and we're at home, and we've got the bit between our teeth, and we've got the advantage. So, you know, let's go for it. Let's do it, and let's give it a real go. And you thought that the second half would be a really interesting one. And that was, of course, another goal for Aubameyang, and he's now scored on all 7 days of the week this season for Arsenal. Sounds like a bit of a pointless stat, but an interesting one nonetheless. So he'd already scored on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and now the Friday. So the set was complete for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. The second half began, and Arsenal came out with all guns blazing, and Aaron Ramsey had a fantastic header saved by Sergio Romero. And, you know, if that had gone in, things could have been oh so different. But it was a fantastic save. You know, some people will say it was straight at him, but given the proximity of Aaron Ramsey at the time when he made contact with the ball. It was a pure reaction save, a brilliant save. So fair play to Romero for that. He's probably a much better second choice goalkeeper than people give him credit for. Argentine international, of course. So, yeah. And then from then on, Arsenal had lots and lots of the ball, but did we really create a great deal? Probably not enough for me. Not enough clear-cut opportunities. And then, of course, on the 64th minute, we were rocked by another injury to another defender. Laurent Koscielny was... he looked as though he was smashed in the face, and I think it was by Lukaku. I've not watched it back, to be honest, since. But somebody smashed him in the face, and he had a suspected broken jaw for which he had to be substituted and went off to hospital. It's now being confirmed that it was just severe bruising to the tissue, and he should be back quite soon, hopefully, because we really need him now, don't we? But Unai Emery opted to bring on Matteo Guendouzi and drop Granit Xhaka into the central defence. And a lot of people are critical of Granit Xhaka pretty much every week, and I get it to a degree. I've always said this. I do still think there is a player in there somewhere, and I get why people don't like him as well. But for me, he's been a little bit unfairly treated this season, in my opinion, because he's always the one that's asked to go and play at centre-back, go and play at left-back, go and play at left wing-back. And for me, you're taking him out of his comfort zone and you're putting him in all these different positions and you're expecting the same level of performance. And you're not really going to get that, are you? And given the fact that Nacho Monreal was on the bench, you'd have thought that would have made more sense. You'd have brought Nacho Monreal on just to slot at centre-back alongside Mustafi. Nacho Monreal has proven in the past that he's more than capable of doing a decent job there, and that I found strange. Also, at the same time, when Koscielny was substituted, Mesut Ozil was brought on as well to replace Alex Iwobi. And I actually thought Alex Iwobi was quite a threat on Friday night. I know his end product isn't usually there, but what Alex Iwobi gives you is the ability to pick up the ball and carry it and run and drive at defenders. And whatever people say, fullbacks don't like that. And someone like Ashley Young playing at right back, who, let's face it, is not exactly a spring chicken, he wouldn't have enjoyed Alex Iwobi running up at him. Alex Iwobi's a tricky player. He's powerful. He's pretty quick, and fullbacks don't like that generally, do they? So I was surprised that he was the one that made way, if I'm being honest. And Ozil came on and kind of took up a deeper role. It was almost as though he was operating as a quarterback, picking the ball up from deep and looking to spray passes left and right. And there were a few good passes, it's got to be said. There were a few that didn't quite go as planned, but they were ambitious passes. So, I'm not going to knock him for that. When you're looking for a goal, you need to try something out of the ordinary from time to time in order to create space. And he often drifted out to that left-hand side, a position he likes to operate in, and in between the left back, the right back and the centre back, that little channel there, a position that he used to link up with Alexis Sanchez very well. But he started to do that a little bit too, and there were some nice interchanges. But unfortunately, the final pass was just missing, wasn't it? It wasn't quite there, and Arsenal couldn't break United down, despite having the lion's share of possession. And then, of course, late on, Manchester United made a couple of changes of their own. They made a double change on the 72nd minute. Rashford and Martial came on to replace Lukaku and Sanchez. I mean, that's not a bad pair to bring on, is it? And then Phil Jones came on for Jesse Lingard, in an attempt to see the game out. So, Arsenal were pressing, and as you'd expect later on in the game, we started to take more risks, and that's to be expected, isn't it? You need to, in order to try and get yourself back in the game. And unfortunately, we were caught on the break late on. Paul Pogba picked up the ball in the middle of the park, and people have spoken already about the lack of effort from Ozil and Guendouzi to get back, and Ramsey too. I think that's a little bit harsh. I don't think that a player of Pogba's quality should be allowed to pick up the ball in that sort of area completely unchallenged. And there was no defence, was there? He literally glided through the middle of our team. Eventually got a shot off Petr. Probably could have done it a little bit better with a save. He parried it right into the path of Anthony Martial, who finished expertly and ultimately finished the game, knocking us out of the FA Cup. But just before I finish on this game, let's look at the statistics, because Arsenal had 63% of possession. 13 shots overall compared to Manchester United's 8. 5 shots on target compared to United's 4. So it goes to show, doesn't it, that possession doesn't mean everything. We had 63% of it, which is a fair chunk, but only managed 1 more shot on target than Manchester United. So, it's about being efficient, isn't it? It's about taking your chances. It's about making those opportunities count. And on the night, we couldn't do that, and Manchester United did. And that is now their 6th win at the Emirates. That's more than any other visiting side has managed since we moved there at the start of the 2006-2007 campaign. And just to reiterate the point I made about it being all about taking your chances and being efficient, there was just 149 seconds between United's first and second goals, and they were their first 2 efforts on target, and they found themselves 2-0 up. So that just goes to show, doesn't it? It is all about taking your chances, and on the night we didn't do that. And as I've said on previous podcasts, if you're so bad defensively, which we are, and nobody's going to tell me otherwise, then you then rely on your strikers being ever so efficient, and they're going to have off nights. Aubameyang and Lacazette are not going to score 2-3 goals every week. So, when they don't fire as well, and you can't defend, the combination of the two things is very detrimental. And unfortunately, we're out of the cup. And is it a bit of a blessing in disguise? It's hard to say that, because as Arsenal fans, it's a cup that we've been very successful in. It's a cup that is close to our hearts. But at the end of the day, Arsenal's aim at the start of the season would have been to get back into the Champions League. And if having a few weeks off here and there when the FA Cup's going on helps to ease the injury crisis and helps to make sure players stay as sharp and as fit as possible, then it might not be such a bad thing. After all, winning the FA Cup doesn't give you a route back into the Champions League promised land. So, am I upset? I'm upset because we got knocked out by Manchester United on our own patch. But in the grand scheme of things, am I that bothered that we're not in the FA Cup anymore? Probably not. I think the thing for me is the fact that we've not improved defensively all season, and it's really starting to grind on me now, because there's only so long that you can make excuses for it. Yes, we don't have the greatest defenders in the world in our squad. We don't have top centre-backs to choose from. We don't even have top full-backs to choose from. But as a coach, you need to find a way of plugging some of those holes. You need to make your team as effective as it can possibly be. And I know that, the personnel thing is what people always talk about to defend Unai Emery. But for me, he's got to be coaching this defence better. What on earth does Steve Bold do? A member of George Graham's brilliant defence. And this was a comment that came in from Gooner Russ and, of course, from Graham Sutherland, and 2 of our regular listeners, who both highlighted this to me this week. And Graham's been highlighting it for weeks. What on earth does Steve Bold do? And the answer to that is probably not very much. I mean, is he there because he's part of the furniture, because he's got a name and a history with the football club? Is he there to be sort of a go-between between the board and the management team? I don't know. Is he there as a go-between between some of the players and the management team? I'm not entirely sure what his role is. He was Arsene Wenger's assistant, and lots of us were talking about the fact that he didn't really do that much then either. But from what we know about Unai Emery, Juan Carlos Caicedo is the man when it comes to the defence, and he's not cutting it at the moment, is he? Because there's been absolutely no improvement. Just going to play you a little extract from Unai Emery's post-match press conference, where he says that our work was good. Do you agree with that? I'm not so sure. Let's listen to what he has to say, and then you can tweet us your thoughts at Chronicles_AFC.
Good evening. I am happy because our work, I think, is good, but the result is bad. And I think today two things very negative is the result and is the injuries, and they don't help us to be on the match. Maybe with the result when it's 1-2, I think we were in this moment with the possibility to draw and take possibility to win today. But I think these injuries, above all the second with consciently, they didn't help us because the rhythm is going down, and also we need to change the different players for play in the central back. But I think they have been very clinical today, and our moment in attacking, I think we were getting the box, but not creating the last passes, the last action to score. But we were a lot in their box, and I think we deserve more. But also we played against Manchester United. They are in the best moment in the season, and also they have a lot of players to do the difference. And when they are in the bench, also Rashford and Martial, they can play after and give them also a big performance.
So the work was good, but the result was bad. Let me know if you agree or disagree with Mr. Emery. You can tweet me at Chronicles_AFC, or you can email us chroniclesafc@gmail.com. Now, I'm going to take a short break, and when I return, we'll be looking ahead just briefly to the visit of Cardiff City on Tuesday night. Enjoying what you've heard so far? If so, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave us a review on iTunes. So Cardiff City arrive at the Emirates Stadium on Tuesday night, and unfortunately Cardiff City have been in the news far too much for their liking in this past week, and not for positive reasons either, unfortunately. Emiliano Sala, their record signing, disappeared after his plane fell off the radar near the Channel Islands, and there's been no sign of the plane or any of those on board as of yet. Really, really, really sad news, and our thoughts go out to Salah's family and to all his fans and to everyone with any association to him. You know, the whole football world is in mourning. It's really, really horrible news, and you know, Cardiff's preparation for this fixture would have been massively affected by this. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, Neil Warnock has spoken about how difficult it's been for the club. And you know, it's not often that I feel for Neil Warnock, but on this occasion, I really, really do.
I've been in football management now 40 years, I think now. And it's by far the most difficult week in my career, by an absolute mile. It's the traumatic, you know, I can't... even now, I can't get my head around the situation, and you know, when I look at Ramino and the family, etc., etc., I think it's such a difficult time. I think you've got to, you know, I keep looking at my own children and thinking what I would be doing now as well. So it's a very traumatic for area, but my sympathies are with them. I think the family has been fantastic, and a massive plus to our fans and Nantes fans. I think they've been amazing as well. So a big thank you to all the fans as well. And from our point of view here, I think really it's just as well we have a game tomorrow, whoever it's against, and to start getting back, because it's been, I've never seen it to say we actually, the lads never met Emiliano. He came to the training ground last Friday afternoon before we set off to Newcastle, and I had a few words with him then. But it's been in a somber mood all week. I've never, like I say, from a personal point of view, I've never experienced anything like it, and it's been amazing how they knock on with the players, the in training as well. So it's unknown territory. I think that's how I would say it, because things like this just don't happen, or you don't think they happen. And whilst I say I've had to use all my experience, it's probably hit me harder than anybody else, because I've met the lad and talked to him for the last 6 or 8 weeks on numerous occasions, and know how he was looking forward to this.
So once again, I just want to reiterate that obviously our thoughts and best wishes go out to the family of Emiliano Sala at this really, really difficult time. And it's sad to hear, really, that the public search operation ended on Thursday after the rescuers found no trace of the plane. I think you've got to keep looking, haven't you? That family need closure, if not anything else. I mean, the chances of Salah being found alive are very, very slim, which is sad to say, of course. But as the family, surely you'd want to know what happened. You'd need some closure. And I was pleased, actually, to read that his sister, Romina, had set up a GoFundMe page and has raised more than 300,000 euros in order to try and continue the search for as long as possible. And some professionals such as Lionel Messi, Sergio Aguero and N'Golo Kante have offered financial support as well to the mission. So, fingers crossed that they can get the answers they need and try to get on with life and try to move on from what is a horrible, horrible situation. I feel like Cardiff's preparation would have been dominated by this week, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about tactics or how I think they might approach the game, because I think it's important that this situation gets the respect that it deserves. And I'm sure when Cardiff arrive at the Emirates on Tuesday evening, Arsenal as a football club will do their utmost to make them feel welcome, show their sympathies and stay classy, because you can criticise Arsenal all you want for certain other aspects, but in terms of their class and their professionalism, you can never knock them for that. And I'm sure that we'll pay tribute to Emiliano Sala before the game on Tuesday, during it, and of course after. So yeah, that's me on Cardiff City, and we'll be back, of course, on Thursday as usual, and on that show we'll be looking back at the Cardiff game and looking ahead to the weekend's game. So yeah, show schedule's taking a bit of a beating again due to the fixtures, but that's the nature of football, isn't it? We've got to chop and change. We've got to be adaptable. So apologies if it's all a little bit confusing. The preview show is normally on a Thursday, and the review show is normally out on a Monday evening, Tuesday morning. So slight change to the schedule once again, in terms of the content that we'll be producing on those days, but it cannot be helped. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Chronicles of a Gooner. You can do so on YouTube, on iTunes, or you can follow us on SoundCloud or Spotify, depending on where you're listening from. Any reviews are helpful, as are comments. They help us climb further up the search engines, so we do really, really appreciate those. And we have a Patreon page. If you head over to patreon.com/Chronicles AFC, we've got a page from which you can support the podcast. As I said previously, it's completely optional. You don't have to, but your support allows us to produce more content, allows us to get better guests on, and allows us to do a lot more. For those of you who sign up as patrons, you will be getting an extra episode each month, which will normally be something historical or a profile of a certain player or a certain time during the club's history, and that will be available to patrons only. And of course, you'll have an option to vote on what you would like that extra episode to be about, so your input is greatly appreciated. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and we'll speak again very, very soon.